What's up, guys? Welcome back for another episode. So in this video, we're going to be talking about the car that should be next to your M3 or M4. This is one of the best daily drivers for your sports car or for your weekend car. And here we have it, right? This car has been on the channel a few times, but we have the G05 BMW X5. And for the past few years, this has been a great daily driver, especially for my wife. Now that she's a full-time mom, I've been driving this car more often because when we run errands, we go together with our son, and this has been absolutely amazing. So in this video, I'm gonna chime in my personal opinions about the BMW X5, my personal experience, and some of the reasons why you guys may want to look into getting into this car as a daily driver. And in the end, we're going to announce something that's going to be interesting for the channel. And I think a lot of you guys are going to be kind of curious of what's coming next. So you guys are probably wondering, Ken, I already have an M3, I already have an M4. It is a good daily driver, right? You don't really need an X5, but if you're looking for another car to replace your M3, M4 as a daily driver, I really think this is probably a great car to check some of those boxes, right? This may not be your economical car where you're buying it because it's cheap just to beat around with. In this tier of the way I'm describing it, it's a great car that's a luxury SUV that checks all the boxes if you guys have a growing family. For me, again, we came from before this car. My wife had a Volkswagen Taos, right, which is technically an SUV, but it's more like a small raised sedan, right? We had that car for about a few years, and then we found out we were having a kid, and then my natural thought process was to get her into a car that's bigger, a little bit more safety features, good crash test ratings, and this car here checked a lot of those boxes out. If you guys didn't watch the delivery video, we went through a lot of trials and tribulations of getting the X5 because the first one they delivered to us was a dud, right? They didn't disclose a lot of information that the car was involved in an accident and the whole driver's side, majority of the driver's side was repainted. So check that one out, and that was not planned, and that was a very interesting day because that led us into this car, right? And this is a 2021 X5. Technically, it's 4 years old, but it's gone through some miles. We have about 48,000 miles. We're up there in mileage, and this car has been great. Hasn't let us down. Hasn't left us on the side of the road. But this car has been a good daily driver. So again, if you guys are probably thinking, why would I need another SUV, or why would I need something more than my M3, M4? Because it comes a time when you modify your car to a point where it becomes a little bit more necessary just to keep the car parked than drive it on a daily basis. For example, my G80 M3. That car is a great daily driver, but it gets to a point where you need something a little more comfortable, right? I'm not saying it's not a comfortable car, but compared to these Tartufo leather seats on this X5, this is so comfortable. This car obviously has some years and some mileage, but the seats, they don't hug you because you're not driving on a racetrack, but it feels like you're sitting on a lazy boy where it's nice and cushioned, it feels firm. And what I noticed with a lot of cars these days, if you have a car and you start wearing it out and over years, the seat eventually feels a little bit stale, a little bit more softer. But the quality of the interior of this car, at least on certain things, has retained its composure, right? This still feels sturdy. It still feels very well put. Some things that I would say that could have been different is obviously the dash, but we do not have the full leather dash. And you can see here, so if you guys figured this is a luxury SUV, right? This is a SUV that's, when it first came out, you're looking in the $70,000 range, closer to $80,000, depending on how much options you select. And I will say though, the dash does feel a little bit cheap. This is not the full leather one. So if you guys are looking for one that has a little bit more of a luxurious feel to it, definitely maybe look into the full leather dash. One thing that's great that this car has, it checks all the boxes, right? Between how sporty it feels, how engaging it drives. And just to give you guys an idea, this car has the B58 in it, right? This is powered by, I believe, the Gen 2 B58, which is a great motor like a lot of you guys know, which is on the X7s, on the M340i's, and also the F30 B58. So the B58 is known to be a powerhouse for BMW, as they use it in a lot of different models of their car. So as you can see, from the exterior wise, this is the M Sport package, right? M Sport package is something that when I was looking for an X5 for my wife, is something that I definitely wanted, because when you look at a M Sport and a non-M Sport, this looks just so much more aggressive between the specific wheels that you're allowed to select, along with the painted fender guards, and a lot of the accents are all paint matched. So the ones that are non-M Sport, a lot of these fender guards here are ABS plastic black, and it's kind of like a matted look. It looks okay, but when you have the paint match for the M Sport package, it looks so much better. And the exterior styling of this car, it's pretty timeless, right? This car is technically, I would say, 4 years plus old already, and it still looks pretty relevant to a lot of the new cars that are coming out these days. One thing that, if you look at X5s on the road, one thing you notice too is that a lot of X5s, I don't know what it is, but when people selected this car to be built on their end or anything like that, a lot of them didn't select the BMW lasers. As you guys can see, we have the BMW laser lights, and these just make the car look so much more aggressive, especially with all the functionality between it. And unfortunately in the US, we're unable to have the full functions of the laser lights, but you could always get that coded in, right? You could always do the anti-dazzle, get that coded in. And from what I've heard on the forums and other people, that the full functions of these headlights are amazing, right? So when I heard, the headlights are able to actually pivot around other cars in front of you, so you're able to see more of the road when it's dark at night. So in the last vlog we did with my M3 in the garage, you guys liked that type of style video. So I'm taking that information and applying to this vlog here. So if you could do me a solid, hit the thumbs up. It definitely helps my channel, and I really appreciate it. But when you look at this car has a lot of room, right? Between how it feels in the cabin. So I'm in the driver's seat. I have it set to where I really need to be set, between the distance away from the steering wheel and how my seat's upright. And then also too, there's a car seat behind me, right? Because we have a little baby boy. He's about almost 2 years old, and it's been amazing to be a father. And I know a lot of you guys that watch this, you guys are growing older with me, so a lot of you guys are going to the stage of being a parent, or a lot of you guys are older where you guys already have kids. So maybe you guys can relate to this. We recently had an X3 as a loaner, and one thing I will say though, it's tight, right? The X3 is tight, and that could be into the same realm as my wife's Taos, or if we had a Tiguan or something like that. I felt like I had to move my seat further up to be able to have enough room for my son and his car seat. But sitting in this position, there's still enough room for my son to, have his car seat back there without my seat laying on it. Again, this car checks a lot of those boxes out. So originally when we were looking for an X5, some of the things that we wanted to check off our list was the color of the car and also the color of the interior, right? One of the major things that my wife wanted was, again, this was her car, was a mineral white X5, and specifically we were looking for a Tartufo interior, right? This is Tartufo. It's a great looking brownish beige color. It definitely gives you some of the old man vibes sometimes, but with the right color combination, it flows so well. As you can see, this looks absolutely very nice. The seats have held up very well for a car that's been 4+ years old. Additionally with that, me personally, I'm sure my wife didn't really care, but I needed the laser lights. The laser lights is something that, for me, it looks amazing on the G80, it looks amazing on obviously the X5. And then there's some of the features that you guys wouldn't even expect to want to have, And that's actually, I could probably show you some footage from before, but on the moonroof, right, there's a sky lounge. It's cool when we first got it, but have we ever used it ever, right? It's a feature where you have your moonroof illuminated with small little dots of, depending on what color you choose. Most of the time we have it on the ambient lighting of purple, but a lot of these lights up here are illuminated with purple, and it looks pretty cool at night. It's cool for my son to look at when we're driving at night, but it's one of those features I forget we have, right? So it's not necessary to check on the box. But that really is part of a package, right? I believe it's part of the executive package. The executive package includes a lot of the bells and whistles that this car comes with. And when you look at the sticker that the original owner had, they had spec'd this car out. Some of the things that I probably wouldn't have chose, that they chose, was probably the wood grain. As you can see here, this is your typical wood grain you probably see on a lot of BMWs. I'm not a huge fan of this. This definitely makes the car feel like an old man spec, so to say. I do like how BMW went to this crystal shift knob. It's kind of like a little gimmick. Does it add more luxurious feel to it? Yes and no. I don't really notice it much of the time when I'm driving the car, so I would say no, but it is a cool talking feature when you have people in the car that are car enthusiasts. I do like how this has a nice leather wrapped steering wheel, and this is a very sporty feel, right? Because this has the M Sport package. Without the M Sport package, you have a different type of steering wheel, and it doesn't feel as nice. And this feels very similar to what we have on the G80 M3, right? It kind of feels like the same feel to the steering wheel. Obviously, some of the buttons are definitely different. But when you look into how much room we have in the back, and this is where I would say it's a hit or miss. So when I mentioned this car has a lot of room, yes, it has a lot of room, but it comes time where when this car seat's in here and you have another passenger, this middle seat doesn't really exist, right? Because with this car seat, you can see on the edge over here, there's little cup holders. These cup holders kind of flare out so you can get the seat belt in there to secure the seat properly. So it becomes more like a four-seater, right? Eventually, my son will get older and he'll go into a booster seat, which eliminates a lot of this clutter. But then we could kind of use it as a five-seater. For people that are growing their families and stuff, we could talk about the trunk space, because the trunk space was actually a little disappointing. I would expect a little bit to be a little bit bigger for a decent sized car like this. And being that this car is one of the flagship cars of BMW, because they do sell a lot of X5s. I believe the X5 is one of the most top selling vehicles from BMW. So they definitely take a lot of time and effort into making sure that this becomes America's best selling SUV. I'm not saying it is, but they always strive to be. One of the things that was very disappointing is how much legroom you have, right? There's enough legroom, and everybody that you watch their videos when it comes to reviews for cars, and there's a lot of various channels, there's a decent amount of legroom, but depending on how tall the person is. I'm about like 5'11", almost 6 foot, but when it comes time to set up my seat, the legroom is there, but also too on the bottom. This seat is so thick that it takes away from a little bit more of the legroom that you would want to have during a long road trip. Is it uncomfortable? Oops, that's one of my son's books. But yeah, is it uncomfortable? Not necessarily for a short road trip, but I can see where, you know, if you're sitting in a long drive, maybe say 3 to 5 hours plus, you would want the extra legroom, and you don't really have that here. I know some other SUVs, you have capabilities of actually reclining your seat back. You do not have any of those features in this car. So one of the cool features about this car is that I believe your car needs to be optioned with it, is actually the rear window shades. And this is a cool feature, especially when you have a little one, right? And you want the sun to stop beating on their face. This is a great opportunity for you to just pull up and just apply that on, and it gives you a nice coverage. And it's a cool feature, right? One thing I would expect from a car like this that's in the $80,000 range would be the automatic rear windshield, where you're actually able to press a button and it does it for yourself. This unfortunately does not have it, so you have to go through the manual step of you physically doing it. And it's only for these two back windows. There's nothing for the rear. There's nothing for the rear side windows. So that was something that I would expect maybe to have. Also too, if you're growing a family, this has a capability for you to actually attach a tablet, right? So if your little one's back here and they want to watch some TV or some learning episodes of whatever your favorite show is for your son or daughter, you could attach the tablet here and have it charged, and this would entertain that toddler or that little one, right? Right now we haven't used that yet because my son's still rear facing, and obviously it's best to keep it rear facing as long as you can for safety reasons. So we haven't used that feature, and we kind of minimize screen time to just during his meals and stuff. But going into it, right, this car has been amazing. I do like how the top of the roof here is finished in that black accent. I don't think this is suede. This is probably like a black fabric, but over the years it's held up pretty nicely. I do like how it's all black, so it makes it go cohesive with the black accents of the dash and also the back of the seats. We rarely sit back here. I've sat back here probably maybe a handful of times, and every time I sat back here, it's not bad, right? When you also look into what you have here is that you actually have a cup holder, right? This actually, the little cup holder here, you can actually fold down. So this part here, right, we're looking at the trunk space. This is where it gets kind of disappointing, right? The trunk space is obviously pretty big, but when you have a big family, or when you have a growing family, once you have obviously some of your necessities, right? When you have a kid, you definitely need some extra diapers and things like that that go into this bag, along with some, you know, a little changing platform. But also too, when you have a stroller back here, this takes up a lot of room. So realistically, if I didn't have this here, all I would have is this portion and this portion of trunk space. And when you have a family, I think a lot of you guys probably go to is either Sam's Club, Costco, or BJ's, and there's not a lot of room to add all your groceries here. So what I will say though is I wish this trunk was a little bit bigger, and we'll get into that towards the end of this episode. One of the cool things, and I'll show you on camera later, this car is fitted with air ride suspension, and we'll go into the front of the car and show you some of the features here. So this car has air ride, right? You can see this knob here, this knob here. You're able to raise and lower the car, right? And I believe you're able to put into that fixed position, and you can drive below a certain miles per hour. For example, we were watching fireworks, I believe 2 years ago for the 4th of July, and we had to go kind of off-road a little bit, the way we were parking, so I raised it up a little bit. So this car, you're actually able to raise it up to a certain point, and it actually looks pretty cool. But also too, one of the cool things too is that you're actually able to lower the car. And you're probably asking, why would you want to lower the car on an SUV? If you think about it, when you're carrying a lot of things into the car, whether you're a tall person, short person, lowering the car gives you a lower center of gravity, so you can kind of not need to go on your tippy toes or raise that thing up to a higher position. The car lowers it to allow you to have an easier way to load the trunk up or load anything else in the car, right? I know for the invasion of West Palm Beach, what I had to do was fill this car with a lot of boxes to put into our warehouse, because a lot of those shipments were coming to my house, and I did not want my garage to be filled with items for the show. So what we did is we filled this car, and we did probably like 2 trips to the warehouse between our merchandise, a lot of the wristbands we ordered from overseas, and a lot of the other accessories you needed for the show. We filled this car with a lot of things. But before I did that, I actually lowered the car to give me a little bit more leverage to be a little more comfortable. Is it a feature I use all the time? Not necessarily, I really don't. But I'm going to show you how it lowers, and also there's a button in the back that we're about to go over, which is pretty cool. So once I set up the tripod over there, I'm going to show you when I hit this button, this car will lower it, and you'll see as I'm talking that you'll see how low it gets, and the feature why you would think it would be necessary for yourself. All right, as you can see, this is the normal height that the car rides in. One of the cool things too is that when you throw this car into sport, the car will eventually lower slightly for a more of a sportier drive. And this car feels amazing with the B58 behind this. I think it has about 345 horsepower, enough torque to get you past the other car if you're trying to pass somebody. And for a base, if you were buying a base one, right, no bells and whistles, this car will have the same motor, right, the B58. And it's enough power. And it's also a car where if you wanted to tune it, sky's the limit, right? This could be the total sleeper, the total soccer mom sleeper. It's also paired up with the ZF 8-speed. And the ZF 8-speed has been such a great transmission, and it shifts lightning smooth, right? And it feels so good. But now that we talked about that air ride suspension, I'm gonna press that button. I'll show you guys what it does. So now that I just pressed that button, I just engaged it. You hear that? You slowly hear the suspension lower, right? It lowers it from the front, then it lowers it from the rear, and it actually looks like a decent stance, right? If I threw a spacer in here to make it more flush, or if I had aftermarket wheels, it would look pretty cool, but these factory OEM BMW wheels actually look amazing. And these BMW wheels are a 22-inch wheel. This is I forgot what model it is, but for me, it's one of the best looking ones because it has that two-tone finish, right, between the exposed brushed clear along with the black. One of the biggest headaches with these wheels is that with every single M Sport brakes is that the brake calipers always produce heavy brake dust, and these wheels are not the easiest to clean. They are easier than my stock factory BMW wheels on my M3, but these are also a pain to clean. One of the initial things I noticed when we bought this car was after driving it for a while is that the insulation in this car between the road noise and what you hear inside the cabin and what's filtered in, it is very eye-opening, right? Coming from a car that was a economical, mini SUV, you heard everything in that car, between all the bumps you run over, between all the tires, on the pavement, everything you heard. I heard all that stuff. Being in this car in the X5, a lot of that stuff gets filtered out, right? Between how much insulation you have between the car and also the technology and also the engineering behind this. BMW did a good job of making sure that when you bought an X5, made you feel like you bought a luxury SUV. And when you open and close these cars, it just feels solid, right? There's some cars where you kind of close, like let's say a Toyota Corolla or like a Toyota Camry. When you close the door, it just feels a little hollow. But when you close these doors, it feels very solid, very insulated, and it's good, right? Because there's times where you're taking road trips and you're driving, hours on the day, and you don't want to hear the road noise. You just want to relax in the car, listen to your music, or just listen to peace and quiet. This car delivers all that. So being a passenger in this car, because again, this is my wife's car, but there's times where I drive it too, what I notice is that the air ride suspension as it compares to a car that didn't have the air ride is that if you had a choice, I would definitely opt to have the air ride. Some of the stipulations that you would want to think is that, are you going to have any leaks, right? I've owned this car for the past 2.5 years, maybe a little more. We've had zero problems with the leaks. We have zero problems with the car. The only thing we had issues with, sometimes being in the car, it would say it would not read our key. Right? That was one of the issues we had when it came to owning this car. And this car has only went to the dealership maybe once for that issue where they had to reprogram the iDrive. And when that stuff happened, what we had to do was hold the key next to the column and to start the car up. And you guys are probably wondering, was the key battery dead? No, it was not, because it happened on both keys after we changed the battery. Even before that, it was happening. So it was definitely a program issue, and a lot of that was fixed when they updated the iDrive 7 or whatever number this is. Something else to point out about this car and the air ride suspension is that people think the air ride, you're gonna have problems with leakage and things like that. But again, the amount of time we've owned this car, we've had zero leaks. And I looked at the previous history with the previous owner, they've had zero leaks too. There was no warranty claims on any of the suspension components. I also spoke to Ben, which you guys know Ben, right? He's been on this channel multiple times, and he's a BMW tech, and he deals with a lot of services when it comes to X5s and all these other cars that people buy and bring in for service. And he said on the older days, BMW used to have leaks on those cars, on the older X5s, the last generations, right? But they fixed a lot of those problems that were so apparent, right? So when it comes to this, we've had zero issues with X5. It had zero leaks on it. But I've been in X5 where it didn't have the air ride suspension, and you could feel the ride difference. When it comes to the air ride, when you hit into the different modes, because this has eco, comfort, and then sport. When you put it into sport, you could feel everything tighten up when it comes to the suspension. Especially when you start turning, you could feel the suspension stiffen up. But when you leave it in eco and also comfort, what I've noticed is that it absorbs a lot of these imperfections on the roadways. When it comes to these South Florida roads, hitting these bumps, it absorbs those bumps so well. And if you guys are looking into a SUV, right, where, you know, if you're looking for a luxury SUV and you don't want to buy brand new, I think this is probably one of the best buys you can get. For give you an example, this is a 2021, right? And the only reason why I know this because we're actually getting rid of this car, right? This car is going to be, or this video is going to be like the exit interview, right, of this car. I'll give you some of my opinions about it, some of the pros and some of the cons, right? We talked about the spacing, we talked about how this car feels and how it performs. And if you guys are car enthusiasts, right, because you guys have been watching my channel, this may fit your boxes, right? If you're looking for a used SUV in the luxury section, this checks a lot of the boxes, right? With the B58 motor, the ZF 8-speed, you can probably get a lower mileage one because we have about 48,000 miles. I wouldn't say it's too high, but it's in that middle range, right? If you want a lower mileage one, you could probably get one for like the mid 30s to high 30s, right? And you're getting a car that has a solid motor, solid transmission, and so far everything inside this car has not failed. The only thing I will say though is that the only time we brought this car over to the dealership because this was a certified pre-owned. So with the certified pre-owned, we had an additional year extended warranty on this car from BMW since the last BMW dealership took steps to make it a certified pre-owned. And we could probably get into that in a video later on. But what happened was about a few weeks ago, we took this to the dealership, and what we noticed was our key wasn't reading. And it was showing that when you were in the car, it would show that key wasn't detected. And you're probably thinking, hey, you probably need to change your battery because your battery's dead. Even before that and even after that, our key was having issues. And it wouldn't happen all the time. It would happen every other time and things like that. So it got progressively annoying, which is why we went to the dealership. And what they did was actually they reprogrammed the iDrive and it fixed it. And during that time period, there was times where we had to take the key, put it next to the column, and let the car read it, and that was a little bit annoying. But other than that, this car has been solid. It hasn't led us on the side of the road. It's been fun to drive, especially on these road trips, going to visit the in-laws or even, you know, driving around town. This has been a great daily driver. If I could keep this car and the other car we're getting, yeah, I would want to keep it. But there's always time for something newer and better, and in a few days we're actually going to pick up that new car. Today I solidified the deal, and we're not unable to go there today to pick it up, but we will be there on Sunday. Today's Friday. I don't know when you guys are seeing this video because we have a very busy week coming up. We have the invasion of Los Angeles coming up, and hopefully you may see some B-roll now. This is all the B-roll from the show we just had, which is in the future for me, is going to be on September 6th. So I think you're going to see this video after because I want to get all the show videos out beforehand, and then you guys can enjoy this video later on. So I'm filming this in the very past for you guys, but hopefully you guys enjoy it. And again, please hit the thumbs up. It helps my channel out. But again, if you guys are looking for a car like this, right, just to give you guys an idea, the dealership, there's a lot of deals out there for these cars. You can get this car, again, anywhere in the mid-30s to higher 30s on a well-spec'd one. And again, this car is well-maintained. It has the upgraded suspension, has the sport wheels on it, 22-inch upgraded sport wheels on it. I don't know what the exact model, but this car has been a car that's been very fun to drive. And for a daily driver and for a family that's, you know, decent size like us. So I know this is not your typical full end review about these cars, but again, this is my personal experience with this car and also how it performs from a car enthusiast standpoint and all the boxes it checks. Again, there was a lot of pros and there wasn't a lot of cons. The only cons I had, again, was I just wish this car was a little bit bigger, right? I just wish it felt bigger on the inside. There's enough room for the width of it, but when it comes to how much legroom you would expect for a car this size, you would expect a little bit more. So that was a little disappointing on that end. But again, hopefully you guys enjoy these types of videos and gives you a little more insight. And if you guys are looking into getting an X5 and you're contemplating about it, worrying about the reliability, worrying about, you know, the drivability of it, this checks all the boxes. Again, if I could keep this car and keep the next car, I would. But again, there's always times for, I guess you could say, level up, and that's what we're doing on this channel. And again, I want to thank you guys for watching this video, and I appreciate it. And hopefully you guys enjoying the vlogs from LA, and I'll see you guys on the next episode.